I think the talk over the last few hours has really demonstrated the challenges that we face. And I think that's how we need to see it across Mid and South Essex. Innovation and digital get used so interchangeably, and they often mean so many different things to so many people, that when you're looking at technology, it's about how are we choosing to implement it and use it for the best value of the problem that we're trying to solve. But it's also about understanding where the boundaries are. So historically, across the whole of the STP, we've all been in our own little silos, and we've developed technology and ways of working, which has helped to resolve the problems that we've faced in our own little areas. But that's changing now, as we're having to change the way that we need to work to respond to the pressures across the area. We have to work differently, and so that's creating different boundaries and different challenges for us. And that's played out in the way that we use technology. So the question about System 1, why isn't it being used? Well, it's quite simply because the System 1 doesn't actually deliver what is needed into the acute hospitals. But that's not the answer. The answer is, well, what is the problem that we're trying to solve? Well, the problem is the fact we can't communicate. So rather than focusing on the system that we're using, let's focus on what the challenges is. And actually let's get together to work together to try and solve the problem. And historically, because we've all been sat in these little silos, it's that shared working that hasn't actually happened. So that's some of the work that is starting to change as the way that it works together. With Jenny doing some really great stuff, working with the acutes, working with the local authorities. We're starting to join those networks. The WhatsApp, the Forward app, the communication processes is a good example of how technology is helping us to bridge some of those gaps. Is Forward the way that we're going to use it forward? Who knows? Because what you don't know is, well, what are the limitations of that system? And so will it actually cause us more problems in the longer term, because actually it says it will do 50% of what we need, but not 100%. So how do we work out what that extra 50% of? And that's the real difference, and that gives the real value for us when we work across the sectors, and that starts to give the real value for our patients. And so it's how do we work flexibly without limiting our minds about what we historically knew and what the historical pressures used to be. Let's think about what we need to do, because that will actually start to release the money, release the fundings, and will start to release the benefits. So if that's all right.
Yeah, so we've got a few more minutes for questions before a refreshment break. There's one on here which is about whether NHS England or CCGs could fund Forward for GP practices, and I was just curious who asked that, because I wonder if they would maybe come and talk to me in the break and explain what they're interested in using it for, because I think going back to Martin's question, I'd be really interested to know how you think it would be helpful and what you think it would be helpful for, because that might help me answer that question. Because the pots of money are always a bit confusing.
Just to say on that, the app is free to download and use. And the reason for doing that is we very strongly feel that a solution to that problem should be available to any clinician wherever in the UK and then the world. They need that solution. Very briefly to touch on the business model, hospitals or CCGs that formally use the app get sort of additional services and things, so there is a sound business model behind it, but it is free to download and use to all in the NHS.
So that was an easy one. I guess I still would quite like to know what people are interested in using it for, though. So if the easy one is, yes, you can have it, it's free, then how do we make sure that it helps solve the problem you're trying to solve? There's one other, Sarah, that I was just hoping you could answer, which is about what funding is available for digital innovations in primary care. So I think you mentioned locally the programme goes beyond the hospitals, but can you just explain how that works?
Hello, thank you. So it's not the Innovation Fellowship is not a funded programme. We are reliant on people who are doing something innovatively to use their discretionary effort to take that forward. What we do is we provide some wraparound support, so we can help them to navigate the system. As I said, we can introduce them to key executives, clinicians, other innovators within the system. We can provide some learning sessions for them. In terms of sort of formal funding, through the innovation programme, there isn't any. We are in the NHS, and innovation is generally expected to deliver savings rather than to increase cost impact. I don't know whether Charlotte has anything she wants to add on that.
I mean, I think since we started the programme about 2 years ago now, what we've been able to support innovators to do is to make the case for a product to be able to get onto a purchasing framework through the NHS, and then we've been able to contract for those products and services, because obviously we're subject to procurement rules like everybody else, and we have to be able to make a business case to change practice. So, but we have successfully taken products from conception through to getting onto NHS procurement frameworks and then buying those products as a customer for those innovators. Even within 2 years, that can be done. So we have been able to take products from an idea to something which is on the market. So if you want Maternity Direct, you can go on to G-Cloud 11, please do. And anyone who provides maternity services, you can buy that and you can enter into a proper relationship with them. And Basildon is an owner of that product. So from us, what we're hoping to do is to build an evergreen funding model for this, whereby products which are useful, people will want to buy on the open market. We don't say to innovators, you'll just keep getting free money from us for an idea if it doesn't actually pass a market test. We will say that has to be a viable product. And we also, through the relationship that we've got with the Academic Health Science Network, so you might be aware of Eastern AHSN and the Health Enterprise East network that's based up in Cambridge, they can help people to bid for money. So there is money that is Essex specific for medical technology. So if people do want to apply for funding, you can get, I think, up to £125,000 through that route from ring-fenced money for tech development, which I think includes digital. That's already been identified by the system. So there are pots of money around which we can help people to apply for. But for us, as with you, it would have to pass a business case. It would have to pass a market test in order to get taken past a prototype stage.
Thank you, Charlotte and Sarah. So I think that goes back to a little bit of the money's complicated answer, but what there is help for you to understand where you might be able to access money for, how you might build a business case for your product or develop your idea further, and also kind of some access to expertise and other people who've done similar stuff. Is that kind of... Yeah, cool. Okay, so I'm going to move us on to the next presentation. Apologies if I gave anyone the false impression that we've got refreshments. You have still got some cake over there if you want it, so do get up and grab it. Thank you to all our speakers. Do you want to really quickly, if you're really quick?
So just because there's a safety question about Maternity Direct. So it does pop up on the phone to tell women that it's only a routine query service and that they'll get a response within a number of hours. So if they feel that they're more urgent than that, it redirects into a phone call to the labour ward. So if anybody was wondering about that, we have tried and tested that over a number of months and years. So it doesn't introduce any risk to the women. It actually helps to channel them through to the right urgent number more quickly. So just thought I'd address that.
Thank you. So thank you to all for your presentation and for your questions. What I should say is we've had more questions on Slido than we've been able to answer through the day. We are going to make sure we publish questions and answers on the website after the conference. So anything that we haven't answered today, we will be answering in writing on the website afterwards.